Welcome to today's presentation. I hope you still have some energy with this warmth and after the lunch. Today I'm going to talk about some software tools that we have created to create crypto wallets and local currencies. It's part of a European project. And for the ones you're wondering, what is this little woman doing here? I'm Aspasia. I'm a software developer. I used to be a Java developer for many years, and then I went rogue and became a Clojure developer. And I joined the last 1.5 year Dyn.org, which is a non-for-profit organization based in Amsterdam. It's an international organization. There I'm the lead developer for the social wallet toolkit, which I'm going to present today. We have a lot of expertise in Dyn. A lot of it is cryptography, blockchain, and privacy tools. But we also have people from other disciplines, artists and video makers and philosophers even. And together we try to make products for the general good. And we're very proud to only deliver open source software. So all our software is under a GPL license. And we are associated with the Free Software Foundation in Europe. And some of the software that Dyn has made in the past, one of them is Dev1 and the other is DAOs. Dev1 is a systemd free fork of the Debian Linux distribution. And DAOs is a privacy hub for the Internet of Things, which is basically something that monitors connections that happen to your house from smart TVs or whatever without your human consent. So you can monitor if your smart TV is actually spying at you. Lately, Dyn.org has become a European research organization. We have joined a few European projects. Most of them are under the CAPS, which is a collective awareness platform for sustainability. It's a great European initiative. It combines a lot of disciplines together, and all of them have aim to involve the citizens more actively to the commons, to create collective awareness platforms. And they touch a lot of subjects like privacy, decentralized architectures, but all from a human-centric perspective. And we try to socially engage citizens to the commons. And so, going back a few years ago, Dyn initially joined a European project that was called Decent. Decent stands for Decentralized Citizen Engagement. And the point of this project was to create digitalized tools for participatory democracy. So online voting tools, tools that you can make policies, but that the citizens can contribute in making policies, and also trying to empower economically communities that have issues. And how these European projects work? Normally we form consortiums of different organizations and companies, each one with different expertise, and we work on one goal. And in that Decent, maybe ThoughtWorks, maybe something you know of, and Dyn were the technical partners. And together with other academic partners, they produced a number of tooling, which is, the project has finished, but the tooling is still there, it's open source. Stonecutter is a single sign-on tool, web application actually, that ThoughtWorks has developed. And there was a tool for online voting, Agora. And also there's another tool, Objective 8, for crowdsourcing and drafting policies. So that was the beginning of the toolkit I'm going to talk to you about today. They wanted through this project to try whether reward schemes are something that can empower communities and raise collective awareness. And then the first version of this toolkit was created in the form of an electronic wallet. So then the whole questions start coming. Can we use the blockchain to empower communities? But maybe we should start from the beginning. Very briefly, what is a blockchain? I think a blockchain can be described as a distributed ledger. So it's blocks that contain information about transactions and records. They're chained together. They have information for the block before and after, so they're connected together, and they're distributed across many computers, and that makes it very difficult to insert malicious entries, because many copies are there and they're linked to each other. And that has a great advantage, that you don't need to have one party that you trust and takes control of everything. The network becomes the trust party. So what is a blockchain used for? If I talk around with people, most people think that Bitcoin and blockchain are exactly the same thing. And yeah, blockchains are not only cryptocurrencies. They can be used for many things. It's a very versatile technology. Maybe you have heard of many applications like the decentralized internet that you can go above countries and maybe even country firewalls. Marketplaces that are decentralized, there's no one point of failure. You cannot attack them that easily. Smart contracts is something that's used a lot, even in the housing industry these days. And lately, there's a lot of efforts of humanitarian, for example, aid to use a blockchain, so you know there's not corrupted, that value is not lost between organizations. Actually, in the past, it's estimated that 30% of humanitarian aid is lost through organizations. So it has already started, and maybe you know many more. There was a great talk before about it. So let's go back to our story. So then Dime joined another European project from, again, the CAPS, which is called Common Fair. And Common Fair had the main aim to create a new approach to the social welfare in Europe. So unfortunately, the living conditions and the economic conditions in many European countries have worsened the last years, and that was the reason why this project was created. And they want to empower people to, so many people have difficulties to find a job. They are precarious workers, they don't have a stable job, especially there's a lot of unemployment in the youth. Many people have the skills, but they cannot use the skills in their location. And many times they need to receive social benefits. And depending on the country, finding out which social benefits you can use and where they are is extremely difficult. So the main goal of this is to create a platform where people can get informed and share their stories, share good practices, and find out about their location, how can they get employed, how they can receive social benefits, and how maybe they can also share their services. And again, there was a consortium formed. Many of the parties are academic researchers, but there are a few technical parties as well. And our role in this was to see if reward schemes and cryptocurrency can help, A, to empower people, and B, to engage them in such activities, to give them the incentive to participate in such a framework. So again, the question we're trying to answer is, can we use reward schemes and cryptocurrencies to empower people, and is that helpful? But also, the question is, can we use complementary currencies? And I don't know if you know what is complementary currencies. It's, as the word says, it's complementary to the national currency. So it's a currency that runs in parallel to a national currency. Usually it's local, or at least somehow defined locally. And maybe we generally think that national currencies are something that governments create or control, but a long time now, this is not the case in many countries. Currencies, national currencies are created by private banks, and the value of those currencies is maybe produced by offering loans. So, I don't know, does any of you know of any complementary currency? Yeah, exactly. So Brixton Pound is maybe the most famous in Europe at this moment. I think it's still running and still doing really well. Funny enough, in London there's also an area called Brixton, and also they have the Brixton Pound there. And so most of these currencies arise in locations or times of, let's say, economic hardships. Maybe the production locally, a lot of small shop owners have to close their shops. the big shops only attract people. Maybe there's a lot of inflation in the national currency. There's many reasons. So what are the benefits of using a complementary currency? I think the initial is, as I said, keep the value locally. So support the local production, and local can be a whole city, it can be a small neighborhood, it can be anything. That also brings some trust in the group of people that live there. People start to know each other, start to shop from each other's shop, or exchange services, even online. But I think a hidden benefit that is very important is that it's very good for the environment, because then you tend to supply and consume locally instead of products traveling through the world to reach you. So all this is nice in theory, but how in this project we know what the actual people need? So we collect requirements for our software from two places. One is the research, because as I said, many partners are academic researchers, sociologists, econologists, so they do the basic work, but then we go hands-on to the people. And we reach communities, we create software, we go on feedback loops, they try the software, we get feedback, we create more. And to do this, we have also some partners, pilot partners in different countries. We work on this project with 3 countries, Italy, the Netherlands, and Croatia. In Italy, we have 2 main partners, the Basic Income Network, which are basically advocates of the basic income. We work with Macau, which is a collective of artists, which I will explain to you later. In Croatia, the Center of Peace Studies, which is a humanitarian organization that deals with many matters, but like combating racism, integrating migrants, and other matters like this. And in the Netherlands, Museo de Crise, which is an organization, has 3 pilot projects, 3 communities. In Amsterdam, the freelancers, which are the typical precarious workers. In Rotterdam, the welfare recipients, so people that for some reason cannot work and receive benefits from the government. And The Hague, immigrants, is a big network of immigrants there. And also the Freecoin node, which is another cryptocurrency, which I will explain to you later, and we have the local node here in Amsterdam. So, because of all these pilots, we have to make something that is suitable for all these different needs and all these different communities. And I will present just 3 of the pilots that we have to understand the complexity of the problem. So the first and the most obvious is the platform itself. So we want to create all the participants of the Common Fair platform will have a wallet. There we will try the basic income, so they will receive income on a monthly basis according to their activity, and we'll try reward SIMs to see if we can make people use this platform even when the project is finished. In Macau, in Milan, as I said before, there is a collective of artists. Actually, it's a very old, very beautiful building. It was initially squatted, but it has brought a lot of cultural value in the city, and now is in the process of legalization from the mayor. And in the top balcony, you can see there's many rooms. Each room is a table, as I call it. Some of them are hackers, some of them are artists, and they do a lot of events there very often. Some are poetry, debates, some hacking workshops. They do a lot of things there. And they actually take care of everything, and they organize the place and the events through our wallet at this moment. And they also use basic income. So everything the community gains every month is redistributed to the community. And there are 300 plus people. And finally, we just got involved with Santa Cagelo Festival. It's a theater festival, one of the biggest ones in Italy. It happens in July. It's a week festival, and every day there are around 2,000 people. And apart from the great theater and events and concerts, they also have a very, let's say, high-tech organizers, which always want to involve technologies, and they want to see how people respond to it. They want the people that go there to participate and make an interactive experience. So this year they will have an augmented reality application that people can check, for example, the program on the location, and they also will use cryptocurrency for purchase in the festival. So having all these different requirements, well, I made a list of them, let's say most basic ones. So one of the obvious requirements is integrating with a platform, and not only the common fair platform, but other platforms. Those platforms typically have their own authentication and user system, so we just need to provide them a wallet. We found out that some of the communities want to have a functionality that looks like a blockchain, but they don't really need a blockchain, and you don't want to over-engineer things. So some communities need a blockchain, some want just a local currency for themselves, which can be backed up by a database, and some want both, that they will have their own currency inside the community, and they can also make transactions outside of the community. And we have a lot more requirements, like printed transactions, like what we call vouchers. So, for example, in the festival, they want QR codes printed with a value that people can receive and secure way purchase products. And statistics, analysis, of course, but the main thing is that all these communities want to keep their independence. They want to be able to configure themselves and try different configurations on the system. And they want something that surprised me, internal transparency. So they want to be able to see internally where the money goes. So they want to know who transacted with who. And they want externally this to be private, but internally they want to know. So I will present you now the modules that comprise the toolkit that we have created. It started as one application, as I told you in the previous project, but we had to break it down to many parts. Otherwise, we could not accommodate all these needs. And so we did break it down to many modules, which can be, you can mix and match according to the needs. All of it is written in Clojure. And for the ones that don't know so much about Clojure, Clojure is a Lisp, is a modern version of a Lisp. It runs on the JVM, so you can take advantage of everything that Java can provide. It has great interoperability. The core library is really small. It has a very particular syntax, and once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to learn. Everything is immutable by default. It's a functional language. You can pass functions as parameters, and it has pure functions, which makes it great for distributed programming. It also has a great library, core async, which is it makes asynchronous programming really easy. And in general, for data manipulation, is a great language, in my opinion. It has ClojureScript also, which you can seamlessly work with JavaScript and front ends using the same syntax. And finally, it has a REPL, which I think is really required for any language if you want to be efficient and try things fast. And I heard many times that, oh my God, Lisp, it has so many brackets. Actually, it has the same amount of brackets like any other language, just external instead of internal. So I think in my experience coming from Java, it took me a while to get used to it at first. It was a different paradigm. I think now people that use Lambda functions in Java, it's even easier. It doesn't even make so much difference. And actually, once you catch up with it, it's, in my opinion, really great. But okay, enough of the Clojure advertising. So the main part that comprises our software is the library, Freecoin library. This is a protocol, and it has many implementations. The basic idea of it is almost one-to-one to RPC calls of the to Bitcoin RPC client. So, and any derivative of Bitcoin, there's many derivatives out there. We're planning to make more for Ethereum, etc. But now we have the Bitcoin implementation. And also it supports database in the same way, with the same abstraction, and an in-memory for testing. So yeah, it's almost one-to-one, but also we have added some metadata, which is like tags, which is very useful if later you want to, for example, search things and group things together. And we have made the Macau Wallet, which is the wallet that now the collective I was telling you about is using, which I can show you quickly. So Front-end is not our expertise, and it's out of the scope of this, so we didn't pay too much attention. And the idea is that we like communities to bring their own front-ends. So we basically provide with APIs normally. But this is how they actually use it. So if they log in, the person or the table, they see there, they can be anonymous. In my case, I have a gravatar picture and a name, but they can have no name. It's just the only thing they need is some sort of email. They get a QR code where you can scan, you can transfer money to them. And because of the fact that they want to know what is going on in their community, of course, now I'm not running a real, I don't want to show their data, so I'm running something locally. But they can see the transactions that happen in all the community. They can see all the participants. So it's something very simple, but this is how they do actually the basic income. So for example, they tag here the basic income transactions, and you can see who created this tag, at what time, and you can filter by this tag and see which transactions happen. So that's how they make sure that everything internally works fine, and that's what they do also when they make events. And now they want to slowly connect to blockchains, which we're going to do later. But going back to the components. So for this reason, we have made an API, because the API can be used by any community. They can bring their old toolkit to make front ends, so they don't need to use our pretty ugly interface. And I can show you quickly. This is Swagger. Probably most of you know it. At this moment, I run it locally, but it's connected on a full node of Faircoin, is the cryptocurrency I was telling you, which is also a fork of Bitcoin, so it works in the same way. Yeah, it's fully documented, so you can see once you try calls, it's self-explanatory. There's examples you can use, and you can define if you want to use a database or you're going to go out to the blockchain. You can do, you can check for addresses, for balances. So it's super easy to do that. And we have added some functionality in the deposits and withdrawals, which is very basic stuff for the blockchain. So for every deposit, when somebody wants to deposit, you basically get an address for someone where you want to deposit money. And then we spread a thread that will monitor this address if a transaction goes there. And once a transaction goes there, the database will update it. So for every transaction that happens on the blockchain, we also update the database. The main reason we do that is very easy then to do statistics and analysis of what the community does without having to ask the blockchain all the time. We can manually check, of course, if that happened. But also when you do a withdrawal, so when you send money somewhere, this is also updated on the database, and once the transaction is verified, and that's configurable how many verifications you need, then the fee is also updated on the amount that was sent. So then you can keep the balance with some communities use one-to-one of the local currency and, let's say, Faircoin. So, or you can use a multiplier. So you know how much left the internal network to the outside. And also we have a way that not all accounts can do transactions to the outside world. So we also extracted an authentication library. So we didn't use the old web-based authentication library. And the reason is that it was a bit too complex, and it was a web app. We didn't want the community to have to run another web app, so we made something very simple. It's a two-factor authentication. Now has an email implementation, but we're working on SMS implementation too, which is very often used by cryptos. We have configurable throttling behavior to avoid brute force attacks, and everything is encrypted, saved on a database with ISO standards. We also have a protocol that we use for cryptography. It does very few things and very well, and it's based on the summary secret sharing. And maybe to show you what you can do with this protocol, we have wrapped it on an application. So you can have something very secret. For example, this is very secret. And this will create 5 splits with quorum 3. This is configurable, so it will split this to 5 parts, which actually you can share. This is not saved anywhere, and of course there's also a standalone version you can run on your own machine. And if you use 3 of those parts in any random order, you should be able to get back your secret. So to show you. So this can be used for many things. And for example, many people have the problem with their wallets that they lose the key. So in theory, you could save your key in this and share it with 5 of your very good friends or people you trust, or write them in different places. And only when you have parts of it together, you're able to reveal it. It also can work very well if you want to write your inheritance, I think. So you know that it's pretty safe and your money goes to the right way. But so finally, the 2 last parts we have created is an administration console. So you're able to configure or produce statistics. And this is based on a web-based repo, and we only expose some particular functions so we can create things for the community, and then they can use it themselves. And storage abstraction. We now have 2 implementations in this storage abstraction. One is for MongoDB, and one is for a file system implementation storage based on NIPI, but we're planning to do more. But you must be wondering, why are you talking about blockchains if you don't talk about particular? Well, how do you use the blockchain? So in this project, we pilot in some of these projects, we do use a blockchain. Very briefly, probably you heard many times, even in this conference, there's many ways you can achieve consensus in on a blockchain. And the 2 main algorithms that are well known is a proof of work, which Bitcoin is using, and it's, let's say, competitive. The winner takes it all. The winner gets a reward. It consumes a lot of energy, and that's not very nice. It's not very good for the environment. The other one is a proof of stake. This works in a totally different way. It doesn't require so much energy. It's more on betting according to some random variable, and the stake, so how much coin you have and for how long. Then you have a chance to create next block. That also has some disadvantages, like everything. The problem of nothing at stake, which is too cheap for a node to actually vote for anything, even if that something is a malicious fork. So, of course, everything is a matter of trade-off. There's no perfection. We went, after analyzing a few cryptos, we went for Faircoin 2 to pilot with this project. This is relatively new. It takes a totally different approach to how to create consensus and distribute it. It's backed up by an assembly. It's actually all the decisions are made by an active assembly. Everybody can be a member of the assembly as long as you run a node. And there is decided what algorithm will be used, how much money there will be created, and all that. And it works. They came up with their own algorithm, and which is the proof of cooperation. So the nodes, there are some special nodes called cooperatively validated nodes. These are the nodes that can create the next blocks. Everybody can run one of those, and they create them in cooperation. So they all create part of a key. That's why they use also a multi-signature algorithm. Each one creates part of a key, and the one that is finally selected to create the next block combines all these keys and signs the block. It's, of course, much more complicated than this, but this is the main idea. And the reward is a small part of the transaction. So this is not something to really make crazy money, but it will cover the electricity costs. So this is just a different approach, and we thought it fitted our project, so that's why we chose it. So I didn't show any code. I don't really like showing code during presentations, but everything is open source. I will share my presentation. You can find it there. Please have a look. Try to run the wallet or the API. And yeah, any comments or issues are very welcome. And yeah, this is also part of all European projects. Publiccode.eu is what you sign when you actually take money from the taxpayer to create software. And I'll briefly tell you what I think I learned so far, the last 1.5 years from this particular project. From the technical point of view, I think the most tricky part when making a wallet or anything is, of course, precision. And the JVM gives you a big decimal, which makes it quite easy. But then when you have to deal with different technologies, it's not always supported in the way you want. So for example, when we started working with Mongo, they didn't have support for high precision decimals. Now they have decimal 128. So at that time, we had to sometimes store as text, and then you lose a lot of aggregation that you can do with Mongo. So that was a bit tricky. But now it's very well tested. We do a lot of generative testing to avoid any problems with this. We're very happy we got rid of the one application that did everything. In general, I think also before I started working for Dyn, I often notice that we over-engineer, we make huge applications that do many things. And lately, I'm really in favor of simplicity and doing one thing and doing it really well. And we don't depend on any proprietary software anymore. We did at some point, and then something changed, and we couldn't change it. And yeah, that is really inefficient if you're trying to make progress. We generally try to use libraries that do exactly one thing, and well, because otherwise you have problems arise and you cannot find out why. And we do like new tech, but we try to use stable things because we also learned that the hard way. We used a lot of arising technologies that were in beta, and that also was not very handy for us. And most importantly, since we work with people a lot, we try to listen to them, what they need, instead of us coming up with the brilliant ideas, solving problems that are not there. I think you're all familiar, maybe that priorities change a lot when you make software. So a lot of these things are either halfway or parked for a while, or the components are there. We haven't put them yet together, but they will be there very soon. And maybe you think, okay, but you know, why are you telling us all this? You must be wondering that it's afternoon, I want to sleep. I don't want to listen to that. So, well, actually, a few weeks ago, I was watching TV and I saw there's a Dutch program, maybe you know it, Tegenlicht. It has very nice subjects very often. So there, that day, they talked about Riace. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's an Italian town. And apparently this town was on threat to everybody disappearing. There were no jobs. The school was about to close. All the young people left, were leaving the the town to go to big cities. They didn't know what to do. So the mayor came with a brilliant idea to invite there a lot of migrants. So you know that we have a huge migrant problem right now in Europe, and a lot of these migrants arrive in Italy. So he invited them to live there. He created their own currency. So he created a currency for the city. And actually, this created a great environment. People came back, the school is open again, jobs were created, and he uses basic income to give to the people every month. So everything seems to work much better than before. He was even selected one of the most influential politicians of the last decades from Forbes. So the currency actually they made looks pretty cool. It takes account all the ethnicities, and it has the figures they chose, and it's quite nice. So what the point I'm trying to make is, I think the blockchain is a very versatile technology. It can be used for so many reasons instead of just making money, and it can improve the life of our lives and lives of others. So yeah, let's be creative and find more uses of it. Thank you.